Culverts. Most people drive right over without even knowing they're there or how important they are. A well-designed, well-built, and well-maintained culvert protects the road from flooding and washouts, and at the same time protects important natural qualities of the stream. But there's a lot more to putting in a culvert than simply punching a pipe through a bank. It takes a basic understanding of the problems associated with culverts, along with various design solutions. It requires making good decisions right from the start. And it means doing the job right. These things will make the difference between creating a culvert that will work well and last a long time, or letting a lot of time, money, and effort go down the tube. Roadways and flowing water. Often a culvert is the best solution for places where the two intersect. But any culvert must be designed with some basic goals in mind, or there could be serious and costly consequences. What are the basic design criteria? First and foremost, a culvert must conduct water freely and efficiently year-round. A road grade that crosses a wetland or stream is basically an earth dam, and unless there's a way for the water to drain through, especially during wet transitional seasons, the road will be in constant danger of flooding or washing out. Consequences can range from inconvenient to dangerous, and the road can remain impassable until the water recedes or until major repairs are made. Bridges do the best job of letting water flow under a road without restriction, but bridges are too expensive to be used at every crossing. A culvert can be a good economical alternative, but it must be sized large enough to handle the flow, particularly during storms or in the springtime when streams are swollen with runoff. A larger culvert may be slightly more expensive to buy and install, but it will pay off with a savings in time, money, and effort over the long haul. A second important design feature is the ability to resist erosion. Without a rock armoring or a covering of binding vegetation, flowing water is free to eat away at the banks around a culvert, eventually causing them to slump or fail. In addition, without proper compaction, water will seep between the culvert pipe and the surrounding fill, causing a form of erosion known as piping, which can eventually cause the culvert to wash out. Erosion wreaks havoc with water quality. It's a huge source of pollution. Suspended sediments carried downstream not only cloud the water, they eventually settle out, making the water shallower and muddier, a threat to fish habitat, swimming, and other recreational activities. By using the right materials, following good installation techniques, and designing erosion controls into the project, both the culvert and the surrounding environment will be better able to stand the test of time. Finally, a culvert must be designed so that it isn't a barrier to fish or other types of wildlife. Fish often migrate upstream to spawn, and many desirable aquatic animals, including fish, need freedom of movement to forage. A culvert with too much water velocity, water that is too shallow, or with an end raised above the waterline, even for part of the year, will limit or block this movement, as well as the ability of these creatures to survive. The loss of fish and wildlife will dramatically impact the health, enjoyment, and any recreational aspects or revenues of this environment. The solution is a culvert designed with these things in mind. One that will permit fish and other critters free passage and protect the ecological balance of the stream. Achieving these goals and realizing these benefits is not difficult, but it does require some focused thought and action right from the very beginning. Proper planning is essential. Smart planning begins before a problem or a need ever arises. A written inventory of existing culverts, noting their locations and conditions, will save time and money by revealing potentially costly problems before they develop. Problem culverts should be re-inspected after each major storm. Once a need is identified, it's still important to consider the bigger picture. What's causing the problem, or what caused a previous culvert to fail? What kind of design will cure the problem, and how will this affect the surrounding countryside, including any private property up and downstream? Are there any alternatives, such as a bridge, or even abandoning the road, that would be better, more cost-effective options in the long run? Addressing questions like these will help identify a good solution, one that will reduce problems in the future. It will also help with prioritizing work. There often isn't enough money or time to tackle all the projects that need to be done. The trick is to identify the worst problem areas, fix those properly and completely, and then continue working down the list as time and resources permit. There are also some project-specific questions that need to be considered up front. These include the diameter, shape, length, and material of culvert pipe to be used. The answers will depend on two things: the site and allocating enough money for the project. Now, when it comes to money, it's generally best to wait until there are enough funds to do the job right. Partial fixes such as dumping loads of gravel after every storm are only temporary. They're hard on the environment and expensive, as the costs of repeated fixes quickly add up. We've seen how a culvert must be sized to handle the maximum flow at the site. Generally, the diameter of a replacement culvert should be based on the performance of the previous design, along with any changes in the watershed that may increase flow. Again, check into the site's history, investigate why the old culvert needed replacement, and base the new one on what you learn. Size is also a factor if beavers are an issue. A larger culvert will be harder for these animals to block. For these situations, one big pipe rather than several smaller ones is the better choice. A decision will also have to be made regarding shape. Generally, a pipe with an oval or arched cross-section is often a better choice for several reasons. First, the lower part of the culvert will carry more water than a round design. Secondly, flatter cross-sections require less fill above them, which means the road won't have to be as elevated. If the stream intersects the road at right angles, the length of the pipe is fairly easy to determine. The ends must extend far enough out so that the slope of the banks will not exceed a 2-to-1 ratio. If the stream crosses the road at an angle, however, the pipe should angle along with it, and a longer pipe will be required. It is important to work with the stream. The temptation to save money by using a shorter pipe and forcing the stream to dogleg under the road will often end up costing more in the future. Any bends where water enters or leaves the pipe are potential trouble spots, highly prone to erosion. Pipe materials range from PVC plastic to corrugated metal to concrete. Because plastic is affordable and relatively easy to work with, it is a popular option for culverts less than 24 inches in diameter. For larger projects, metal and concrete are competitively priced, but concrete will be more labor-intensive to install. In some situations, it may be possible to put a liner in a culvert to avoid total replacement. One thing to consider with a steel pipe is corrosion. If the water or soil is acidic, a corrosion-resistant alternative, such as aluminum or coated metal, will hold up better over time. Simple pH testing will show whether or not steel is a good long-term solution for the site. Sometimes planning will require getting outside help. The County Highway Department or DNR can offer up basic advice. For more complicated situations, for example, if water is topping the road, an engineer should be brought in for some expert design assistance. If you do decide to call in a professional expert or consultant, make sure the person has experience with these types of projects. Don't be afraid to get advice from others who have used consultants in your area. The final stage in the planning process involves scheduling the work. Obviously, times when spawning is occurring or when higher water levels are expected should be avoided. As you put together a schedule, be sure to allow enough time to complete the project. Doing a culvert job right means doing it A to Z. Beware of overscheduling. Taking on too many jobs in one season invites half-finished or rushed work. Remember, part of good planning is prioritizing. Well, finally, it's important to check into and secure any permits required for doing this type of work. Well, once a culvert project has been identified, planned, and scheduled, the next step is the work itself. Now, these jobs are often complicated by the fact that the best way to install a culvert is to put it in dry. But by nature, the work site will have water running through it. Again, scheduling the work during the low water months is important. In addition, coffering the site, creating a dam or a temporary culvert nearby are ways of redirecting water away from the work site while the project is under construction. In any case, it's important to consider the impacts these or other actions will have on the surroundings and plan accordingly. This includes using temporary erosion controls such as mulch, matting, or silt fences while bare soil is exposed or disturbed. With very few exceptions, putting in a culvert is going to take some digging. It's essential to set the pipe deep enough. Approximately 1/6 the diameter of the culvert should be installed below the level of the stream bed. This will help protect the culvert from being undermined by erosion, and it allows the culvert to fill with enough water to allow fish to pass through, even in dry seasons. Similarly, the grade or slope of the pipe should drain water, but not so quickly that fish and other aquatic critters will have trouble moving upstream against the flow. Firm, uniform bedding beneath the pipe is extremely important for supporting and distributing the load of the overhead fill. Corrugated steel and PVC pipes should be placed on a bedding of 4 to 6 inches of compacted soil. Soil must also be compacted underneath the curves of the pipe along either side, up to at least half the diameter of the pipe. These flexible or semi-flexible pipes should not be set directly on bedrock or concrete piling, although such surfaces can be an appropriate footing for a concrete pipe. Properly backfilling the trench is a critical step that boils down to two things: choosing the right materials and applying them correctly. Fill should be a good mixture of soil, including fine material that will help bind the larger bits of gravel. Compaction is also essential for strength, support, and resistance against erosion. One of the most common reasons that culverts fail is because the loose fill was not properly compacted as it was put in. Good compaction requires backfilling in layers, laying down 6 to 8 inches of fill, then tamping it thoroughly before the next layer is applied. Special attention should be given to the inlet and outlet ends of the culvert. A flared intake opening will help direct water into the pipe, especially during times of turbulent flow. Flaring the outlet end will help slow the velocity and disperse water across a broader area, minimizing any scouring of the stream bed. In fact, the installation isn't finished until erosion control has been thoroughly addressed. This includes armoring the banks with rock riprap and planting native vegetation that will bind and shield the soil against running water. Temporary erosion controls such as mulch, hay bales, matting, or seeding with oats or rye should be used until the plants become well established. Finally, the road itself must be groomed to prevent erosion. Water trapped or funneled along the surface will quickly eat away at the road, causing ruts and carrying soil into the drainage. For this reason, the road must be properly crowned, ditched, and regularly graded to shed water and channel it away from the road bed.
A few years ago, we had a major storm. We had several inches of rain one evening, and as a result of that, there were 16 to 18 culverts that washed out. Our township was declared a disaster area along with other townships in the county, and federal money was available to us to repair the damages. Because we were using federal money, the DNR had specifications for these culverts to be put in properly. It was required that we put a culvert end on each end of the culvert, fabric around the culvert ends, and riprap covering the fabric. Now this last spring, we had a similar storm, 6 or 7 inches of rain overnight, and all of those culverts that we installed 3 years ago, they all held. I'm sure that most towns are in the same financial circumstances that we are in, where money is tight all the time, and we don't want to spend any more money on projects than we absolutely have to. But we have found out by installing culverts the proper way, I believe in the long run it has saved the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money by not having to do projects over and over again.
Well, once construction is finished, it's important not to forget about a culvert. Some regular, easy maintenance will be required to extend the life and value of the project. As we've discussed, regular inspections can catch many problems early on, while they're still relatively cheap and easy to fix. Things to look for include damage or deterioration, cracks, corrosion, or physical changes to the inlet or outlet ends that must be repaired. Also, check the road surface for any unusual settling or movement. Check inside the pipe. Any debris plugging the culvert will need to be cleared. If beavers are intent upon blocking up the culvert, their barriers will have to be removed, and the animals themselves may need to be controlled. Monitoring and controlling erosion is also part of good preventive maintenance. If any slumping or in-cutting near or around the pipe is occurring, it can be stabilized before it undermines the entire culvert. And of course, regular grading, grading done properly so that there are no berms along the sides of the road to trap or channel water, will be necessary to ensure good drainage of the road itself. Doing the job right. We've stressed this over and over again, and it's really the key to success with culverts. The bottom line is this: culverts require an investment in effort and financial resources, with the costs of skimping or cutting corners will be much, much higher down the road. A successful culvert project, one that drains water rather than money and time, can be done at a reasonable cost and with long-lasting results, but it requires following through at every step. Proper planning, careful and complete job execution, and some simple follow-up maintenance. When it comes to culverts, these are not things to simply pass over.